David, I'm online, I believe now.
Ms. Jones, can you hear us okay?
Yes, now I can hear everybody.
Okay.
Let me move from where I am and go back to the front.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Dr. Wavy.
Welcome to the September 21st regular meeting of the Board of Education. It is 6:15. I'm Gary Eaton and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I will begin by taking roll. Mr. Calderon. Present. Mr. O'Brien.
Present.
Ms. Appleton's not going to be here today. Ms. Jones.
Here.
Okay, we're ready to start. I'd like to begin the meeting with a prayer, and I've asked Mr. O'Brien if he'd lead us in the pledge. If you guys would care to join us, please stand. Heavenly Father, we come before you today humbly thanking you for allowing us to serve our community in this way. Father, we ask that you give us guidance and direction, and that the decisions we make here today will be pleasing to you. Father, we mourn those who we've lost in the education community, teachers and students and family members. Father, we ask that you comfort those families who are dealing with this loss. And Father, we ask that you comfort also those who are dealing with health issues right now. We have so many that are in the hospital and fighting to stay alive. Father, we ask that you watch over the students, keep them safe, help them do what is right in our schools, and help them to appreciate the facilities that they have. Father, we ask that you forgive us where we fail you. In your precious and holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. It's at this point in the meeting that we open up the podium to you, those of you in the audience who would like to speak to the board. Or is there anybody that would like to come before the board tonight? I ask that you come down, state your name, and try not to go longer than 5 minutes.
Mr. Eaton, while Ms. Linsky's on her way, I want to take a moment and recognize one of our elementary schools. We received word today, officially, a word today, that Coronado Elementary School has been named a National Blue Ribbon School. We had a chance to have an impromptu celebration with staff this afternoon, right when school was out. And just a quick comment, 130,000. That's the number of schools in America. 325, that's the number of awardees this school year. 3 is a number of blue ribbon schools in New Mexico for this school year. 1 is Coronado Elementary. And so absolutely kudos to Ms. Laura Otto, the principal at Coronado, and her staff. I know that's a process, and we absolutely appreciate your efforts in recognizing and really providing world-class education to the students of Coronado. So congratulations. Have a couple celebrations, one on Friday with kids, and then after the national award, we'll have another celebration in later November.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, my name is Jacqueline Lindsay. I am an English teacher at Hobbs Freshman High School. I've been an employee with Hobbs Schools for my 7th year. As I passed around, this is a little crayon, and what it has on it is a message. This is a message that I gave to my students and with a crayon. Now, after attending the in-service at the beginning of the school year, I was inspired and actually, I'm trying to speak from my heart and not be nervous about doing that. When I read the strategic plan for 21-26, and the first item says it's student success, increase attendance and engagement by students in day-to-day instruction. B, support social emotional learning, character development, and mental health of all students, and ensure that curriculum is relevant and rigorous. I took the 3 questions on the back of the sheet and I put it together an activity. It says, tell me your story. What I had my students do, if I could, no, I promise I won't go over my 5 minutes. I just- 2 weeks. I had them take the crayon, and if you will indulge me for a moment, please. Now it smells waxy and not so good, but if you close your eyes, and I'm sure if you just have a flashback to a time in your life, kindergarten. You remember holding the crayon in your hand. You remember the worksheet the teacher gave you, the lines you followed as you did your uppercase A's and your lowercase A's, and then the first time you did your cursive. Now, it may not be have been your teacher who gave you that confidence to keep it between the lines. It may have been the person sitting next to you. It might have been someone you've never met. It's the first time you've spoken to your classmate. But they've helped you say, oh, good job. You did this. And what I asked my students to do after they got themselves centered and they felt safe, the instructions are, find an object that will help create a flashback. Past incident reoccurring vividly in the mind of a new and exciting experience you have had as a learner. For example, the crayon. Could be a drawing, a short story, or any item in your possession that allows you to generate a positive experience from your academic past. I ask my students to take time to focus on their flashback until they could end their mental journey feeling safe, happy, and content with who they were in the present. And I asked them to answer each of the questions, 3 questions, using 5 or more complete sentences, and then turn it in for a participation grade. I have 2 binders, one for pre-AP and one for regular English. The responses that I got, absolutely spectacular. I got to know who my students were, not just here and not just out here, what their dreams, what their fears were, what their goals are. And I can honestly tell you, I have done some amazing things in my career as an educator, but this was the most powerful moment I have ever experienced with my students within my classroom. And I wanted to share it with you all tonight, because I think it's worth sharing. The quote, you are worthy, you do belong, and you've got this. Love me. It's taped to my desks. It will be on my exit ticket going out. My students will create their own quote for the next incoming class. And thank you for allowing me to do this. 19 years I've been coming to board meetings, and this is my first time ever speaking.
You did well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, for a minute,
Yes, sir.
flashback.
Sorry.
You know, pre-kindergarten, when I was in school, I went to parochial school with the nuns.
Me too.
We don't mess around with the nuns. That was a flashback.
I shared, one of the things we do as teachers is share our thinking process and what I shared. As you can tell, I'm an immigrant. I'm very uncomfortable speaking in public. I'm originally from Scotland. I will never be homegrown, but I am, as an educator, American made, and I'm very proud of that. When I went to school, I shared with my students, Mrs. Bryan did not like me. It was back in the day in parochial school where they had spankings, corporal punishment. She would put me in the corner, she would spank me, tell me, if you're late again, ooh, I'm gonna get you. It was one of those things where, as I processed, I know why I do what I do. And I shared with my students, when I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning, whether I want to or not, I ask myself, I go through in my head, period 1, 3, 5, all the way through my day. And I think of my students' faces and I ask myself, what kind of teacher do you want to be today? And my energy level might be here and it might be here. But my goal is to be the best teacher I can possibly be. And hopefully I accomplish that every day when I go into my classroom. And hopefully my students know that every day when they walk into my classroom, regardless of where their energy level is, that I expect their personal best and I can trust that they will give me their. Thank you, I got you. I'm right there.
Can you tell me what school you teach at?
I teach at Hobbs Freshman High School. sir.
Okay, okay, they're fortunate to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm fortunate to be here.
Thanks, Ms. Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to us? Come on.
Hello, board, Mr. Jean. My name is Jill Ashenfelter. And I had sent to you, the board members, a certified letter and package. It looks like some of you had it. Did anyone need a paper that was included in that? I know you weren't included. Probably need one. Looks like you both have your letter. What you have in front of you is an abstract paper of a research done in 2019 by an expert on the immune system, Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. If you would turn to page 3, please, there's a research summary of the results of his research. Use of cloth and surgical masks is ineffective. While N95 masks are effective, their prolonged use creates harm. Dentists have identified mask mouth and increased incidence of periodontal issues with mask use. Systems biology analysis reveals that a molecular mechanistic basis on how mask usage may affect the mouth microbiome leads to periodontal disease. Oral health is essential to overall systemic health. Oral health affects multiple systems: cardiovascular, nervous, metabolic, and immune, to name a few. Children's oral microbiome is critical to not only their future oral health, but also their systemic health. The establishment of oral microbiome in children is a predictor of their future oral and systemic health and diseases such as early childhood caries, which means cavities, celiac disease, autism, Hennig-Schönlein purpura disease, pediatric appendicitis, pediatric inflammatory bowel disease, and pediatric obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. The reason that this has been sent to you is that to show you the science that mask use extended wear is harmful to children ages 5 to 15. They're still building and colonizing their oral flora and developing lifelong health impacts. That does not even discuss the potential psychological and developmental issues of our children. The reason I'm here today is to place you all on notice that scientific information that masks harm children. And we want to make it clear that multiple courts have ruled if you knowingly vote for harmful policies and any child is harmed, parents can then sue you personally. This means they can go after your homes, your cars, your stored wealth. I would just like to ask, I'm making an assumption, I may be wrong, but is anywhere here on this board have scientific or medical backgrounds that to which to bake to the decision that has been made with this mask policy? I would guess most of you do not. There are no medical doctors on the board, no PhD researchers on the board.
Well, it's not the practice to engage in dialogue.
Okay. So then rhetorical question. So the parents that have signed on to the certified letter that you've received, basically if this mask policy persists and their children are harmed, you potentially can be sued personally. And that is what I'm here to share today. And I appreciate your time.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak to us? Yeah.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Strickland. As you probably heard, there was a petition going around regarding dress code, ending dress code for Hobbs High School. We got wind of it at the high school and we took some proactive approach and began visiting with our students. In visiting with the students, we had some productive dialogue with them and also their parents. The petition was scheduled to occur on September the 10th. There was no walkout, there was no sit-in during that day. And I think it's part to the conversations that we had with the students and also with the parents. Conversations that we had with them is we listened to them, we listened to their concerns. And so their parents were actually a big part of our conversation. Their parents did a lot of the talking for me to their own kids regarding the direction that we're going. And the parents that we visited with were informing their students or their own kids, if you're going to be doing something in this capacity, do it the right way. Research, come up with possible solutions, some compromises, and then come to the school board and present your findings to the school board, rather than doing a sit-in or a walkout. And so the students, first of all, were very appreciative of us taking the time and listening to them. And again, the parents did most of the talking for us. And so with the support of the parents, we actually visited with the students even as of today, just to follow up to make sure things were okay, knowing that there was a school board going on today. They're thinking possibly, if anything, to move forward next month. But at this point, I think they're okay with our conversation. They understand that policies and procedures are in place that must be adhered to. But to be honest with you, they just really want to be listened to. So again, very productive meeting that we had with them. And so I don't expect anything to happen. I just wanted to give you an update regarding the petition that went through. That's the type of questions to be having.
I appreciate you doing that. I think that the kids and sounds like the parents would much rather have a conversation with you than come here. And, you know, and we can't make a decision like that overnight. It's a process. And so maybe this is the beginning of the process and we can do something that makes everybody happy.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mr. Eidson and Mr. Rubiatis, I think it's important for students to see the process play out. As I shared with a couple of students that I visited with, there's not a year goes by that we don't look at our dress code in some form or fashion. And I appreciate the vigor in wanting to come to the school board and wanting to visit with the board in October. I think it's important to note that our dress code, as a function of it's currently written, is not board policy. Board policy is that we will develop and maintain a dress code. So those items that students want to address, we're willing to look at that. It does fall within our student handbook. So there is some flexibility there as opposed to it being board policy. So I appreciate the efforts. I look forward to students being involved in that process, because it is healthy to have constructive dialogue in those matters.
Agree.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, hearing none, then we will move
I have
on.
one thing here.
The board members have anything.
Yeah, no holds above your knees, Jalen. For now, so get it worked out. But also, I thank you for coming and Mr. Ashenfelter, did I say that right? Yeah, thank you for coming and trust you, nobody wants kids wearing masks any more than any of us. So we're trying, we work with the state or whatever to try to do what we can as a board to keep kids in school. Our number one goal is to keep kids in school. Last year, the remote learning, I'll tell you, last week I was on a 2-day Zoom for about 9 hours a day at training class, and I hated it. I can how these kids did it for weeks, months, trying to do school. I hate it. I sit in front of the computer for 10 hours, and I'm just like, I don't know how the kids did. I'll never be for that again. I'm for keeping kids in school. We've definitely, Mr. Strickland, the team has been working diligently with doing that, trying to keep our kids in school. That's our number one goal. We want to keep the kids in school. We appreciate the concerns, the interesting read from the medical study there. There's, that's like anything else. You'll get a medical study that says they're bad. You'll see a medical study that says, oh, it's okay. It depends on what you read and who you read it from, So, but we appreciate your concern and concern for the kids' health. And like I said, we're working hard to hopefully these numbers to go down. We can get the mask done, but our number one goal is to keep the kids in school and get them educated. Thank you very much for your.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but the lady inspired me to say something. I don't know how to start, but you saw today's paper has a deal on Hawaii tobacco, which I talked to the kids about marijuana. The city commission as a educator, I'm gonna have a big problem. Gonna be a big decision for me. The two biggest ones we had was when we brought the prison and the casino. A lady came over to the old city hall that we had, and she criticized me, plus 2 churches came by and criticized me. I got hit bad. And she says, how dare you vote for this, for the casino? You're going to hell. And wise, what? I said, maybe I'll see you there too. And she really got upset, but it's personal with me. I saw 2 families affected with alcohol, and I don't drink. I was 21, 22 when I quit drinking cold turkey, but I saw those 2 people die. And I'm making a confession up here, but I haven't touched any alcohol since I was 21, 22, almost 60 years. And we're having a work session on the 27th, but I can't be there because we're having our hosting for the Region 6. So I'm going to skip that one. And we have our meeting on the 4th. I was a guzzler, I just started at 14, 15. I'm from Las Cruces. We could go to Juarez and get the booze easily. And it was just, I just quit. And then that monster was, what I call the green monster, was always in back of me. And always afraid. And I was still teaching or working as the at-risk coordinator. And I remember I started getting irritable. I had my wife. Nobody could say anything to me. I needed a drink. I didn't know what to do. And before I had fought myself and I stopped. There was a little old nurse, and maybe some of you remember her, Bob Gallagher's mother, Miss Gallagher, Alice Gallagher. We went and we talked. She says, Joe, you? And then she told me what to do. She says, Joe, you have a doctor, go get some tranquilizers. And then I said politely, yes, but then I'm gonna substitute alcohol for tranquilizers. Tonight, she called me. She says, Joe, have you tried ice cream because of the sugar content? I tried it. You go to my house, we have ice cream. And I haven't had that monster hit me again. And I still get high. I've been getting high for 27 years. When I leave in the morning, I go to the alternate school and I teach at the detention center. And I taught for 27 years. That's my high. Work and talk to the man upstairs. I'm a Catholic, so we see service at 6 o'clock in the morning. The big guy helps me a lot. But getting high by just working and working with kids has been my way of no more alcohol for me. So Monday, I'm still working on which way am I. We have to go a certain way, otherwise it'll be out of control. I wanted, as an educator, I've been pushing this with kids, don't do the wacky tobacco, watch the alcohol. And whether they listen or not, I feel good that I've talked. Anyway, I don't drink. This is my confession, and I wasn't gonna say anything, but that lady got me going, so thank you, ma'am. So I confess. Okay, that's all I got. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay,
Can you guys still hear me?
yes, we can.
Because I have a new phone. I barely know that it's on, so I don't have a mute. But no, just glad to be here. I wasn't feeling very well, and I hope I don't start coughing and disturbing anybody. If so, I will try to mask it the best I can.
Okay. You sound good. It sounds like you're in the room with us. It's coming through so well.
Well, thank you.
Okay, regarding tonight's agenda, if there are no changes, then I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Regarding the minutes of the regular board meeting for August 17th, are there any changes in that?
No, sir.
Hearing none, then I'll also entertain a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're ready to go to instruction.
Mr. President, members of the board, if you'll scroll down to, I'm trying to get there myself. Under instruction, we're looking at two memorandums of understanding. And the first one is with the city of Hobbs, and this is regarding the 21st Century After School Program and Grant. As you may recall from a few board meetings ago, we did not receive the award independently, but we are a sub-grantee under New Mexico University's, no, New Mexico State University, thank you, different under their grant. So we will be receiving funding. It is a little less than what we had originally put in our grant, but we will still be able to open the after-school sites and keep them going. So this is a memorandum with the city that they will continue in the new grant cycle, which is October. They will continue to provide transportation from Edison students, from Edison for those students to attend the Will Rogers program, and that we have access to the Teen Center as a what they call a destination location. That's just fancy for a field trip. If we would like to take students there during the after school program to use some of the activities in the facility. And that's what this agreement is about. And it is an action item, sir.
Okay. I appreciate the city their willingness to work with us. I'd like to recognize City Commissioner Don Girth, who's trying to hide back there on that back row. Commissioner Girth, do you have anything to say? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, well, I hear a motion, or is there any more discussion regarding this?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The second memorandum of understanding is with the Boys and Girls Club. This one does carry with it a change in the new grant. In the old the former grant, I shouldn't say old grant, and the former grant, the Boys and Girls Club was a 21st century site, which means they housed the program and we bus kids to their site. In the interim, as that grant was ending and with all of the closures of schools, they were unable to open, but we were able to open during some of our models, the hybrid and so on, which is when Edison, Will Rogers opened as a site and Edison started going to Will Rogers. We are going to maintain that in the new grant. And Mr. Clampett is aware, we've had discussions back and forth. What we would like to do with them is they already had programs at 3 sites, and that was, they did an after-school program. That was the Boys and Girls Club program at Stone, College Lane, and Taylor. So this memorandum of understanding would include that and include Will Rogers, pending their ability to staff. Right now, that is an issue for them to find enough workers to fill all of these sites. So it is written as part of the memorandum, pending availability of staffing.
Well, let's hope they can find help. I think
Yes, sir.
everybody has that same problem.
Yes, sir.
Is there any additional discussion? Anybody from the Boys and Girls Club here tonight? Doesn't appear so. So I would entertain a motion for approval of this memorandum of understanding. I won't.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mrs. Jones is going to come down and present some AP College Board results that you'll find in your packet.
Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Strickland, I believe you have the results from our AP testing from this year. I know it's kind of brief, but I thought I kind of would summarize a little bit of it for you. As you can see, in 2021, we had 313 tests taken, which was, down quite a bit from our 2020 and even our 2019 school year. From our remote learning and everything else that went on. We also did digital testing only in 2021. So having students get on, take their test at home kind of, I think, affected our numbers. Our 2020 test, even though we were down some there at 767, at least we had the students here through March before they were at home. Again, that was their first digital experience of test taken. While 2021, we only had 313 tests taken, you'll see that our qualifying scores, the percentage was a little bit higher. So a couple things I just wanted to kind of talk about was, this year, we're already excited about the numbers that we are having. We adopted the new pre-AP curriculum through College Board that plays into and aligns with the requisites for our College Board. As of right now, we had 5 pre-AP courses that we adopted, biology, chemistry, English 1 and 2, and visual arts. We have 943 students already enrolled in pre-AP enrollment for that. And on our AP enrollment for our high school, we have 635. So the numbers are already rising. Just having students, Mr. O'Brien, how you talked about remote, having students log on to the dashboard and into the College Board when they're not face to face with their teachers to encourage them, it's hard enough. So we already have those numbers going. We will have more students enroll second semester. While we always want to focus on, the kids taking the test and encouraging them to get college application, the big deal is we want to always encourage the rigor that we have within those classes. Part of the numbers that we're seeing fluctuating too from 2019 to 2020 was we used to have students take AP classes and dual credit classes, and they could take the same class and then they could choose which one they wanted to take. In 2020, the students had to choose beforehand. They either had to take the AP courses or they had to take dual credit. So we have competing, offerings at the same time. Do you want to take it for college credit? Do you want to take it for pre-AP or AP credit? What else can I answer for you?
When you mentioned the kids had to make that choice, will it always be that way, or will they go be, it will?
It has become that way.
Okay.
When they have to take a dual credit class, they have to choose to take dual credit. They can't we can't have the students in at the same classes, different materials. College Board requires different curriculum. New Mexico Junior College requires different curriculum through the dual credit program.
Better.
I think it depends on the student. I'm just going to talk from a parent's experience. I had one child who went straight AP, and she could take the test and she could pass it and she could get that credit. And I had another child who he was smart enough, but the testing part, so he went straight dual credit. One had 33 hours going into college, one had 32 hours going into college. So I definitely think it depends on the child themselves. I mean, we definitely want them to try to do AP because of the rigor, but I also think we have great teachers who teach dual credit that they also get the rigor there. So I don't know if there's I don't know. Debbie Dean, she's our science AP lead. She might, and she teaches dual credit, so she does both. So she might have a better outlook on it. AP, I'm sorry.
More rigor. AP is more recognized. They go more in depth. Dual credit does the intro class, but it also requires that teachers have gone in and gotten that extra. Have to go in and take those higher education courses, to even be certified through higher ed. Be able to teach dual credit classes. So it's hard to offer sometimes the dual credit classes. But I agree with Ms. Jones having a child who went through AP versus dual. Up to the kid. It's one day, a test should not define who you are, how you take the test that day, but the rigor they get, the in-depthness, the knowledge they get coming from them, both of them are great as long as they're fun. These are great.
President, Mr. Calderon, I can speak a little bit to some of the stressors that it's caused. Where typically those same students would have been in one classroom for AP and dual credit. By splitting those, we may have small sections. So you may have a section that may have 12 kids and 12 kids as their AP and dual credit, 2 different periods. Whereas before, they may have all been in second period. So from a staffing mindset, it has placed some stressors on that because you have less staff available per se of the different classes or coursework they have. I will tell you though, I'm thankful that Hobbs Schools offers those opportunities to our kids. Because we believe in both programs, believe in those opportunities that create those opportunities for kids. If we were to just say we're not doing anything, I think we would be cheating kids. We only said we're only doing AP, I think we'd be cheating kids. Only said we're doing dual credit, I think we'd be cheating. I'm thankful that the students of Hobbs High School, as well as into our middle schools, have that opportunity to participate in those different programming options. Because it truly does allow a student to individualize their instruction and their content.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Thank you.
I have a lot to offer tonight, I guess. lengthy
Executive
presentation.
session.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, my last information for you is the summer training offerings that occurred this summer. There were a few, on the first page, you can see there were a few in June. By far, though, the majority occurred in July. And there's a variety of things that were happening. I'd like to draw your attention to page 2, because this is the section where we offered Capturing Kids' Hearts. And Capturing Kids' Hearts is a program that we have tried to offer to new principals as they come into a school. And so the high school was one of our target areas, and Mr. Trubiatis and 53 of his staff went through the program. We were very pleased about that. We also had Taylor had 17 teachers and the principal attends with them. Edison 20 and Sanger 25. This program is just like it sounds. And thank you. I had your name written down here and then I haven't gotten to it yet. Mr. Calderon attended, and so we may seek his comments. You can build a room to a certain capacity. They don't want it too large. So we focused on those schools, but we also allowed schools who had gone through the program previously to send staff, new staff to their building who had never been through the program. So we wouldn't redo the whole building, but I can tell you College Lane, Coronado, Murray, Mills, Southern Heights, Jefferson, and Will Rogers all offered single-digit numbers of teachers to attend those trainings as well. So we felt like that was a great success. Very pleased with that. As you continue through the summer offerings, you can see that we got behind on our program trainings for teachers. We got new programs, but weren't able to meet or bring out a trainer, or they weren't doing virtual yet, but everybody got better at that. So we did a lot of program trainings. As you look through the list, you'll see a lot of our programs, the Into Math, the Studies Weekly. And we did not misspell the word letters. That really is a training, and that's how it's spelled. And we're going to bring you more information on that next month, because that's part of the literacy plan. And Mrs. Vigil is going to bring you some information about that plan, because that'll go on for several years. At the end of that, not the last page, but the next to the last page, we also had some independent learning offerings. And these were previous recorded trainings that anyone could get on and take advantage of during the month of July. And we did a lot of these were July trainings, as you can see. The next page looks different than what we've been looking at. And it has the gold trim around it. And this gives you an overview of what was offered. And there were a lot of offerings. On the right of that, it tells you how many participants were there. And I have to thank Mrs. LaShawn Bird for providing me with this information. She pulled it off of DPC for me. And we thank her for that. Number of participants, the length of the professional development, how many hours it took if you took it, and then the total hours that you could get if you attended the whole thing. The last page of that is the total hours that were offered per grade level. So you may recall we do extended learning time. It was a part of what we did last year. And part of that extended learning time, where we added the 10 days to the calendar, was tutoring. You had to agree to tutoring before or after hours, and 80 hours of professional development. So you can see here that we tried to increase our offerings, knowing that extended learning time would also be a part of what we were doing this school year. But we were also catching up. It had been a while and we needed to go through quite a few things. So we feel like we were very robust this summer. And if you wanted some of your hours or wanted to catch up on some of your programs or or the Capturing Kids' Hearts, which has become very much a district program that we've tried to continue to do, then there were plenty of opportunities.
So the hours that the staff could get goes towards their 80 hours that they're required. That's good.
Yes, sir.
Got it out of
If
the
it
way.
was in July.
And those don't count the PLC days that also count on that.
Okay.
So those are automatics. These are, we wanted to try and build something, Mr. President, that didn't want staff to have to go and find and dig and search things out. We want to be able to have those resources available to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I assume that's all.
I'm done.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Cooper? Okay.
It's a lot of training.
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, we're ready to move on to human resources.
All right. Mr. President, members of the board, I bring to you the reports for human resources. The first one deals with certified employment since our last meeting. During that time, we've hired 4 certified staff positions. I'm pleased to announce that 2 of those are two of our first teachers ever hired for the new CTEC facility. Damien McGee teaching automotives and Gilbert Ramirez teaching energy. If you didn't get a chance to look on our home website, there was some great interviews Starla Jones put together and Zeke with our 2 new teachers about why they decided to jump in and help start this new program. It was really, really well done. Very excited to have them on board. The next item is report of classified employment. On this, we've had 21 new hires in classified positions from paraprofessionals to computer lab managers to new parent attendants, liaisons, warehouse workers, nutritional services, 21 new hires there. We have unfortunately had some resignations. We have 5 certified resignations from, we have 4 teachers and 1 occupational therapist assistant that have left the district. For the most part, these are people that have left Hobbs. So they've gone on to other things there. And then the next one deals with classified resignations. We've had 10 since our last meeting. Secretary, paraprofessionals, custodians, nutritional services, computer lab manager. Most of those, if you noticed on our hires, we were able to replace. So that's good. And then also we did have 1 classified termination that's listed there. That took place earlier in August. Didn't make it on to the last month's agenda. So, any questions on personnel?
I have none. None?
From Seminole, he doesn't. I saw that he was teacher.
Teacher seminar. Which
Yeah,
one?
the one from, the one that you hired for a seat there. I just curious.
Right. So for our CTEC positions, those are considered 800 licenses. An 800 license requires a minimum of 5 years in their field, in their technical field. It does not require a college degree in that if they have so many years of actual field experience. And so they were able to get licensed by the New Mexico Public Education Department. They're set, they're ready to go. And now Mr. Kaney's got them going in training and they're good to go.
Good, exciting.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, I had on the next one is an action item for your consideration of approval of moving stipends. As you know, and as you're very much aware, we are having trouble attracting high quality teachers to Hobbs. That is true nationwide. When I look at other school districts in our area, there is a tremendous shortage of teachers. And the competition to get them to come to your school district is fierce. And one of the ways that Hobbs has done that in the past is to offer what is called moving stipends for those high need areas. In the past, we've offered a moving stipend for licensed teachers that were certified in math, science, special ed, and bilingual education, $5,000. Last year, we had to reduce that down a little bit because we were in such short supply for elementary teachers. And so we went elementary in those positions of $2,500. We can't give what is called a signing bonus. It has to be something tangible, something recognized as an effort on their part. And so we classify it as a moving stipend. For us, at this point in time, we would consider every teaching position a critical need area. So in working with Cabinet, looking at increasing that moving stipend to pretty much include all areas based on either high need areas, certain amounts, and then for our more elective type teachers, basing it on a radius of how far they're having to actually move. What we do in those situations is once they have completed all their paperwork, turned in all their required documentation, basically a lease agreement showing that they have a place here in Hobbs within our boundaries, then we cut them a check. It's a separate check that they get to help them get relocated, set their deposits down, get their utilities set up, all those things that have to take place in order to get moved to here. This is very competitive with our neighboring districts, and whether it's New Mexico districts or Texas districts, this is a highly competitive recruiting area that we would like your approval on. Listed there is $5,000 for math, science, sped, and bilingual, those traditional high need areas, $4,000 for elementary teachers, and then social studies and English teachers. And then for other fields such as PE, art, business, whatever the case may be, it would be based on a radius of how far they move. We wanted to include people who were already living in the area, who might be teaching in another district, who want to come back into Hobbs, and offer that incentive for them to come to Hobbs. It is critical that we get teachers as much as we can. In addition to this, we also have other programs and plans to recruit teachers. I know that we're meeting with USW tomorrow for the next program, hopefully to encourage our paraprofessionals to go into higher ed and finish out their degrees to get certified as licensed teachers. That would be a homegrown program. We're also looking at a grow your own type program. It would be more in conjunction with our high school and helping to create a career pathway, not only for our CTEC people, but also a career pathway for people who may want to go into the field of education. And then, of course, we'll start our recruiting next month at universities.
Who would have ever thought you would be giving these bonuses to attract?
I know
Please.
when I started 32 years ago, if I had an elementary position, I'd have a stack of resumes that high. And that's not the case anymore.
Understandable. Gosh, you hope that you could do something for those teachers who decide to stay.
Yeah, I
You
know,
know, those, they mean just as much to us as
absolutely.
maybe we can get creative come Christmas again. We try to do that every year, so.
We do. So this would be just for recruiting purposes.
Understand, okay.
We had at a conference or something a few years ago. Eastern New Mexico, which I guess has a good education program. A lot of teachers go through that program. I think they said that one year they had 3 graduate.
Oh, my
Yes.
goodness.
Yeah, it's like you think in university Eastern's not huge, but you think it'd be at least 30.
Yeah.
So they had 3. It's really a lost art almost. It's a lot of it's the money. The cost of living's higher, and you don't make a lot, so you have to be working family or working or whatever, so. But then, like you said, a lot of the recruiting going to universities, I've noticed in the past, where you hire teachers to come in, no experience, that's their first job, is coming to Hobbs to teach. They come in to a job, they just spent 4 years of college to get, so making 40,000 a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Then they gotta go take their test and spend their money on their licensure. So you gotta pay to get your license. You gotta pay to take your test and pay to get your license. They're already not making very much money. They're basically eating ramen. And then, to do all that to come and teach. But then they're trying to learn how to teach and they got that stress. So this is definitely I think it'll be an incentive to get people to come, but also help them get over that hump, especially young teachers. Fresh out of college or whatever, because that's a big step, especially coming here. Oilfield is busy, cost of living goes up, rents up, things like that. So.
And just talking with a friend of mine in Abilene the other day, Abilene has 3 universities. They also have a regional service center that provides an alternative certification pathway. Abilene has over 100 teaching vacancies right now.
From Dillon, Odessa, I don't know how many they have.
Odessa was 250 the last time I checked.
But out there want to be a teacher that's not a teacher already. Put your name in the hat. So.
Okay, if there aren't any questions for Mr. Young, then I would entertain a motion for consideration of the moving stipend.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We'll move on to data. Who's data today?
President.
Evening, that's me from Beyond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Sean Spurd and a few other members of our staff are in Frisco at the
Right.
Texas Skyward User Group Conference.
Round Rock.
My bad, not Frisco anymore, Round Rock.
It used to be Frisco, yes.
It used to be Frisco. And so she's joining us this evening for the portion on data.
How are you, Ms. Bird?
I'm good, I'm good. So, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, and Mr. Strickland. The first item I have is regarding demonstration of competency for our graduating seniors. As you may recall from last year, or well, from previous years, New Mexico graduation requirements consist of 2 parts: course requirements and competency requirements. So this is specific to competency requirements only. In years past, students could demonstrate competency primarily through state assessments in reading, writing, math, social studies, history, or an alternative method was through the state's menu of options, which Hobbs schools also adopted, included things like national tests, career technical certifications, portfolios, or other local board approved means. But last year, graduation requirements were adjusted for the class of 2021 by giving districts flexibility with course requirements and demonstrations of competency, both parts. This flexibility was only available for seniors graduating in 2021. On August 24th of this year, Dr. Perea Warnament at PED issued a memorandum to superintendents. In that memorandum, it states that due to pandemic-related interruptions to standardized testing, PED allows the continuation of the passing of required coursework to demonstrate competency for cohort 2022 and 2023 graduates, as it was allowed for cohort 2021. So in your board packet, you will find the Hobbs Municipal Schools demonstration of competency menu of options. This is not a new document. We've just updated it to include the option described in the memo from PED. But this would only be for the 2022 graduates, so cohort 2022. So I will stand for any questions. But I would ask for your consideration in improving this option for our class of 2022.
Are any questions for Ms. Bird? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion for reception. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, sorry.
Ms. Jones, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think there for a minute, somebody was trying to call me.
Okay, we have a vote. Did you hear the motion and the second?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All in favor?
Did she vote? Ms. Jones, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay,
Aye.
thank you. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item I have is just for information. This is wrapping up the attendance data with the Attendance for Success Act that was instated last year after House Bill 236, the New Mexico Attendance for Success law that was passed in 2019, but became part of our school processes last year. And so if you'll recall, I believe Mr. Cantu presented some information to you guys last year. At the beginning of the year, 40-day, and then throughout the reporting periods. This is the end of year data for how we ended up at the end of the year. So you'll see each school on the left-hand side there. The first column is our current year enrollment, not previous year's enrollment, but this is the way that the state presents this in the school's attendance plan process that they do. So it shows the 2019-20 overall absence rate and chronic absence rate, as well as last year's 2020-2021 overall and chronic absence rate. The definitions are down there at the bottom on what qualifies as or how absence rate is figured, or how the state figures it, as well as the overall and chronic absence rate. So chronic, just to remind you, is any student that has missed more than 10% of the enrolled school days would be considered chronically absent. And that would put them in tier 3 of the tiers of support. There's also a tier 4, which would be 20%. But if you look, for example, at let's pick one, Edison Elementary, for example, 13.82% chronic absence rate. So that means that 13% of their students, or 13.82% of their students, were absent at least 10% of the school days or more.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Sorry, that was my watch. It couldn't understand me. So I will stand for any questions.
Gosh, it looks like the percentages, is it this year that we're looking at, have gotten crazy?
This is, yes, 2021.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
President,
It's not pretty.
Mm,
Yeah. I would like to speak to what we actually see. As you know, and Ms. Bird explained it very well, that we shifted from a daily count in terms of absences to a percentage count. If you have a kid who's been enrolled for 12 days and they miss 2 of those 12 days, they are immediately a chronically absent student because they're greater than 10% absent. Whereas before, that number did not kick in until they had missed 7 days of absence. So this is not a phenomenon that's new to us. I think it's a phenomenon that's hitting the entire state in terms of how these percentages are. We have seen increased attendance this year in that we're in person. Remember this data last year, we were remote for 3/4 of the school year. And so it was very difficult to not only engage with students, but also how do you mark attendance? So recognizing that number is that number. It's one of the efforts we made this year in terms of our parent attendance liaisons, as well as our counselor and social workers at every campus, help with identifying those attendance issues for our students, see what solutions we can bring to the home, to the parents, to be able to get the kids. And we can't help them, we can't educate them if they're not here with us.
So my plan is to show you some 40-day numbers at next board meeting that will be from the current year. And so I have every confidence that there will be a significant improvement from last year already.
Very good. Just goes to show you, learning remotely, nobody shows up either. Thank you, Ms. Berg.
Good job, Mr.
Thank
Brown.
you.
2 days and 10 hour days.
I'll tell you what, it was tough. The funny part about it was nobody else showed up. It's being the instructor.
I bet we've got teachers that can sympathize.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, looking at those numbers, I bet, yeah. So, that was rough.
All right, is that all for data or is there anything else? Looks like that's all.
That is it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions for Ms. Berg? Okay, all right, have a good evening, Ms. Berg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to go to operations.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, members of the board, Frank Mackey is here this evening to present our projects update. Which you do have that slide deck in your packet. Okay.
Mr. President, members of the board, and Superintendent Strickland, to give you a brief update of the projects that we have partnered with the state, as well as some new projects that we're going to bring online. So the first big project is Southern Heights Elementary School replacement. Fortunately, tonight we have Juan Dorado with Secretary Sabatini here. He will give you a presentation, so I'm not going to tell you very much about it. I will let you know that we have finished our final design committee meeting that happened today. And we have received Honeywell's comments on both the fire alarm and mechanical systems. That, as well as all of our staff, CAI, food service, maintenance, energy, we've all gotten together and given Secretary Sabatini and the state our comments. So everything is proceeding on target. And I'll let Juan give you a better update on that. We will be getting some comments from the city, both engineering, police, and fire department next week. Todd took a nice long vacation, so he couldn't get to us. The second project is Mills Elementary School site improvement. So we've met with PSFA and gotten everything squared away to continue with the construction document submittal. That group did meet with the engineer to go over the refuse location. We all let Juan give you a better update on that. So again, this project will be submitted to PSFA the end of November. We'll be bidding it first month of 2022. And we'll commence construction right over the spring break. The project should be completed by the next school year. We do have a number of security awards. A door replacement project at Edison, Stone, Taylor, and the high school. Those projects have been let some time ago, but due to material shortages, both in annex hardware, the little chips for the strikes and all that, and the aluminum doors have all been delayed. So at this point, October 18th looks like the target date where those materials will be shipped and the contractor can finish those projects. We have a intercom upgrade project at Stone that the state was asking about, but that project was completed last year. Another project with the state is the Tidings Auditorium Systems Award. The project has kind of been stalled because of the way the memo of understanding was awarded. So this was just for design services. Then there was a conversation with the state that, well, the designer can't be the contractor, which is not what we would like. We want Honeywell to design our system and to construct it. So at this point, we have changed the program a little bit. We've instructed Honeywell to give us a proposal on splitting that system into two. We can have a chiller for both tidings and then a separate chiller for the 100 wings, so we don't have to be running that chiller all the time for all that space. Honeywell is getting us that new quote. We'll be getting back to the state, having a conversation as to how we then can procure the construction funds through them. And if there's going to be hurdles that we cannot achieve, then we'll be doing this alone. Heiser Middle School, but we have been awarded a study for that. And so this is becoming, for me, kind of a hot potato. We've had this award for a while. We haven't issued an RFP to any design professionals to study the site and the building to determine what is the best course of action for the district. We either can remodel, add on to the current facility. We could remove it completely and build new on that site, or we could build another new middle school. So that RFP is my high priority. We're going to get that thing out the very first of next month, get that project moving. Something not on the slide is the high school fence project. That is part of the security ward, and we are at close to closing out. It's just paperwork to get the project done, but that project has been completed. Some of the new projects that are going to be coming online is the REC 7 alteration and site improvement project. We did have a meeting with staff and went through the building. They have provided me with an inventory of all the furniture, determine what can be relocated to the new facility. Or if you're clear as to what the program is, so I'll give you a brief update. Got 2 buildings on that site. This is just south of Will Rogers. So the west building is currently being used by REC 7. The east building is used for special ed or therapy occasionally. So the goal is really to create a new staff parking lot where the existing REC 7 building is. That staff parking lot would also double as a parent student drop-off area and alleviate the congestion on Clinton Street. We had LASCO provide us with a modest refreshing of that building. But I think with the changes that we're going to be doing, we're going to need to put this out to bid. First step is to get Pettigrew out there to survey the site. Then we need to put a kind of a building program together, which I've started, and that will be issued in about 2 weeks. And then I did mention here that we had some ownership problems on the property. So once we get the survey completed, there is a narrow strip westerly portion of our site that is now owned by 7 individuals of the same family. Brooklyn and I have looked at that, you know what the value of that property is, and it's a matter of now contacting these people and talking to them and negotiating. Another new project is the high school and central kitchen. So I'd mentioned this before, once we get the CTEC building occupied, we now have a lot of vacant spaces in the 300, 500 range. So I'll be meeting with the principals to identify the needs so that we can now secure a design professional
the very first of next year to start programming and analyzing those spaces. The central kitchen is efficient in freezer space, requires daily delivery. So we're looking at possible areas, the 500 or the 600 wing, to either renovate one of those buildings or construct a new metal building with a prefab freezer inside of it. What is best for that option? And the latest new one, which isn't on the slide, is the Highland kitchen addition. So Mark and Ron and I went out last week to look at that. This is a cafeteria and kitchen that was designed years ago for like 600 people. It's now currently trying to serve 1,000. So in their cafeteria currently, they've got freezers, refrigerators, stock bulk items in the cafeteria, of course, takes away the seating. Determined we could do a very simple addition to the east of that, adding storage and an ADA bathroom for both staff and for the students. That would be an upgrade. And both the district central kitchen and the snack bar operators would have separate storage areas. This would a lot of the storage problems and then allow the occupants more room in the cafeteria. That's it for this month. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
I guess all the food is prepared here and then distributed, right? Or is it prepared at, say, Highland?
So, Mr. President, as it relates to those meals served from the cafeteria, yes, it's prepared at Central Kitchen. And Frank can probably proof me on my numbers, but when we remodeled, not remodeled, but when we built the new cafeteria kitchen 14 years ago now, 13 years ago maybe, it was programmed to serve right at 5,000 meals a day. Sonia reported the other day that she's serving anywhere between 600 to 6,500 meals a day. Pre-pandemic, we were at 7,200. So absolute freezer space is a problem. Literally are getting a semi truck a day. It increases our shipping costs. We don't have that ample storage. But the snack bar model, order and your store their items at their campus, through middle school system.
You'd have thought 14 years ago, you built the kitchen big enough, but
Yeah.
you just keep growing, yeah.
But go enjoy a high school or freshman lunch. It's full.
Any other questions for Frank? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, tonight we have Juan Dorado and Mr. Mackey spoke to that. Juan is leading that project team for Southern Heights, and so we're glad to have you.
It's good to see all of you tonight. Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Strickland, members of the community, thank you all for having me here. I'm happy to report the progress on the Southern Heights Elementary School project to you today. Our committee has been hard at work, as well as members of the school district, facility staff, Mr. Mackey, and we are just elated to show you what we've done up to date. Next slide, please. I was making a joke to Frank that I did buy this laser pointer pre-pandemic, which now that we're all virtual meeting, folks cannot see where I point at anymore, but it's a bit of a comfort. Yeah. Anywho, going into what we're going to talk about some of the schedule items, where we are to date. Mr. Mackey did touch on the schedule a little bit. And then I'm going to show you the current development of the site plan, where it sits today after the committee's approval. And then we'll talk about some different areas of site equipment, play structures, and then a general floor plan update so we can see how the building is starting to shape up in relation to the previous presentation, which was all program. I believe the last that we spoke after schematic design. And then we have some really great interior and exterior renders to show all of you. The committee has worked with these materials, had them in their hands, passed them to staff, and so really would love to show you the progress thus far. At this time, before we progress to the next slide, I would just like to have the members of the design committee that are here, just please stand and be recognized for all of your hard work. So thank you all so much. I think they deserve it. I always promise them we're gonna go an hour and a half when we go 2 at our meetings, so I definitely, I'm in their debt. So thank you both very much. So one thing that we are doing, and I believe we did cover this last time, we started with developing goals for the project. And at every project meeting, this is the slide that we start with our design committee to ensure that the decisions we make are meeting the goals of the project. And the goals have been the driving factor to every decision from day one of programming all the way through today. And will continue to be so through the construction process into the opening day of Southern Heights. So I always like to present these to show that we do double check those. Next slide, please. So a schedule update, we are about 50% of the way through construction documents. We'll be submitting these for 100% completion on November 1st. After we get to the 90% milestone, we'll review each piece of equipment with the facility staff, Mr. Mackey's team, as most of the finishes, exterior and interior, and anything that is going to be in direct contact with the teachers has been approved already. The drawings, as Frank mentioned, from the design development phase completion, have just completed their review by the district and have been submitted to PSFA. And so now that will go through the process of the PSFA review, and any comments that get back to us, we will be sure to incorporate into the construction document process. We are still on track for meeting our construction goal and opening of final completion in August 2023. Slide, please. So here's the site plan as it sits today. The Southern Heights current school location is on the north side of the site. North is up in this drawing. I'm on the corner of Texas and Turner, just so everyone can kind of get their bearings at the top left of the site. The school, of course, will remain open through construction, similar to how Broadmoor was constructed. And we will have the provisions in place as we lay out the site design to have temporary construction fencing to protect the safety and health and welfare of our Southern Heights occupants and the public. So that really was the driving factor to how you see the school sitting on the site today. The school is 2 stories for a portion of the wing, which we'll go through here in a bit. It's really the bottom left side with the K and pre-K portion at the top right. As you'll see on the top right arm of that wing, the single story side, we do have a dashed line that goes across the top of that piece there. And we do have a bid lot in this project for 4 additional pre-K classrooms that we'll take a look at. Currently for the site, traffic needed to be divided, so we wanted to keep several means of access to the site. The bottom right side of it, as you see those 4 yellow squares or rectangles, are where the bus entry will be, as well as service entry, refuse pickup, and maintenance and food drop-off access. The bottom left side, as you round Park Plaza there, that is our front entrance to the building. So that entry point will be where our younger children are dropped off. We did separate the drop off from older kids to younger kids to kind of alleviate some of the traffic queuing issues that we see now. And so having that long round queuing area for cars to come onto site, drop off the children, and then make their way out the bottom of the site if needed. There is an option though, as you're dropping off your child, if you needed to turn around and sign some documents as notified by a teacher, you can always circle back and enter the parking lot. So that's why we have kind of that loop shown that you see there. At the top side of the site, you'll see a dual lane drop off. So we're planning on separating maybe first and second, third, fourth, and fifth on the outside lane. And there'll be several points of crossing on that. This area is part of the playground, as you can see on the site. And so this is only open during pickup and drop off times. During the regular school hours, there are gates on either side of this access that will be closed. So the children can have their large turf field, as you see there now at the very top of the site, or the playground structures that you see just adjacent to the school. And if you're looking at this site on your tablets, you can see the numbers 5, 5, and 6. Those are where our play structures will be located. The number 6 is just for the younger pre-K kids. So we'll have some really cool things that we'll talk about here in a bit on those sites. We did provide some additional staff parking adjacent to the field at the top right of your site. This is also for after-hour community use, since this is a very heavily used community school and has community programs for after-school 21st century learning. So we wanted to be sure that we were allowing the goals that have been set by the committee to be realized in regards to connection to the community. Are there any questions on the site that I can cover?
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please. We're going to zoom in a little bit here and take a look at our playground areas. As I mentioned, those numbers on the previous page and the highlighted areas on your document here. Your playground areas are going to have poured in place surfacing. So that way accessibility and any other qualities that the hard surface offers below these playgrounds. And I say hard surface, it's really that soft rubber surface that you can easily wheel over and you don't get stickers from. That's going to be for all of our site areas, and we'll have some really great creative designs and thicker spaces for fall protection on the larger play structures. Next slide, please. So taking a look at some of these play structures that you're going to see here on this page. One of the great pieces of input from the community was we wanted to have the playground easily interchangeable for students to use, with the exception, of course, the pre-K playground. So we wanted all-inclusive playground structures and some lessons that were learned from the previous year during the pandemic. We wanted to make sure that the play structures, if the kids were split not by age but by time of lunch, either area was available to them. So we have some really great ones that we proposed to the committee today. Most of them were accepted. I did get the request to change some of them that we thought maybe the spinning would get some of the kids sick, or maybe some of the daring kids would go a little crazy on those. So we are going to change those ones out by recommendation of the committee. So looking forward to that. Next slide, please.
You look at some of these structures and you're going, how many ways can the kid get hurt?
That's right.
That's what
Yeah. The committee caught that today, and we were like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and just revise some of these because you folks know your kids and how daring they are, and we want to make sure we are giving you the right equipment for them. And so in this area here, we have some more fun equipment. You can see some of the accessible play structures that we have for some of the students with special accessibility needs. Next slide, please. And then the pre-K playground area, this is going to be an enclosed space so the kiddos can have a nice confined space to play within, and don't wander off into the basketball courts or maybe outside of the supervision area. Some cool things that are going to be here that were by request of the committee are a tricycle track. So we'll have that area colored into the actual poured in place surfacing, and it's going to cross the sidewalk. So you'll have some really cool yield signs and stuff that the kiddos can hang out on. So we're pretty excited about that. But these were the age range accessible play structures that were recommended by the manufacturer. Next slide, please. And so on our floor plan view, it is a two-story building. And so here, this slide is to really just give you an idea of where the one-story floor plan sits and where the two-story floor plan sits. This is the base bid that we're looking at here. Next slide. When we zoom into the first floor plan, which should be my next slide. Up one more, please. It's okay, no problem. So on the first floor plan, you can see the green areas are the classrooms. The teal light, or I guess darker green area to the top right is the bid lot for the 4 additional pre-K classrooms. And then the gray areas that you see towards the middle of the plan are for special education resource room, breakout spaces. The bottom side where it has kind of that brownish, reddish brown color, that is going to be our administration area. And the kind of tangerine color are our special shared spaces. So including gym, innovation labs, bilingual resource rooms, and any gym, office, or programmatic space with those. This will be of course, a serving kitchen format, as pretty typical for Hobbs schools, that we just discussed the kitchen. And we're going to keep all the younger kids on the first floor. So first and second grades are towards the left side of the school, where pre-K and kindergarten are up towards the right. If we go to the next slide, please. On the second floor, you will see this is where our third, fourth, and fifth grades are located. We didn't put some shared spaces on the second floor, like the library, so the young kids have a chance to go up to the second floor to visit some of these areas. Also art and music. And so those spaces are all located on the second floor, as well as some additional special education resource breakout rooms. There are some really cool opportunities here for some double height space as you get towards the teacher's workroom to the bottom right where the gym is. You can see into the gym from above, so there's plenty of areas of supervision. There's also a nice double height space from that area to the first floor that we've done some really cool creative railing for that fits some of the design motifs that we had. Next slide, please. Anticipation of the next slide coming in.
What's again?
This is a color palette that the committee has voted on and accepted. We will be using the colors as identification wing colors. And we have always taken the opinion of, when you're looking at the longevity of a school, to have very select areas of colors that children will use as a means of identification and location within the school, since some of them cannot read yet. So when you're looking at the wings, which we're going to go through here in a bit, the soffits in classrooms for a specific grade wing are the colors that you see on the board. The main field colors that you see on the far left side are going to be pretty much, I would say, 80 to 85% of the school color. And we just find that over time for district rotation schedules to be really something that's beneficial for schools. We'll be doing sealed concrete through the majority of the building. The classrooms will have in their wet areas where the sinks are located, sealed concrete. The teaching space and teaching walls will have carpet, and with the current things that we're seeing in some of the industry standards, like prevention or reduction of allergens and teacher fatigue in some select areas for carpet, was some of the decisions that we made for that in the school. You can see kind of the hexagonal shape that we chose. The mascot is a spur, and so that spur point is kind of the common theme that you're going to see around the school for those hexagons and some of the acoustical panels, the tiles, some of the carpets, and even the railing that we're going to punch on the second floor. It's going to be pretty neat. Next slide, please. I believe the next one is, yep. So as I mentioned earlier, identification. So the committee and the design team came up with a really great idea to have these beautiful super graphics that are New Mexico state symbol themes, that as a child is moving through a wing and they're trying to remember if they're in this wing or that wing, they can instead tell a teacher, I'm in the Roadrunner wing. And all of these signage and super graphics and photos that we're going to select will be in English and Spanish. So we're going to have a great bilingual component to these super graphics. And so the colors I showed you earlier are the colors that correspond back to that super graphic that's going to be in the school. Next slide. And so the locations we've chosen for those, I believe wing 1, which is that color, will be on the bottom left side of the floor. So that's going to be your first, second grade wing. Yuccas will be in that pre-K area, and then butterflies will be on that, or balloons will be on that. Actually, I didn't change that, I'm sorry. Balloons will be on the pre-K wing to the top right, if the bid lot is accepted for construction. And for the second floor, next slide. Yep, okay, there's the balloons. I did add it, I thought I did. So that'll be the second floor item that we'll have. So next slide. I'm sorry, we have quite a bit of material because I haven't talked to you all in a few months. So I wanted to make sure I get all of the committee's work to you all. So the innovation classrooms, which will be used for some of the maker spaces and projects that are going to be in the school. They're going to be a large classroom that can be divided into two regular sized classrooms. So that is the format that you're seeing there, with a partition that will come across and can divide the space into two small rooms as needed. Next slide. In that room, we're going to have quite a few outlets. The floor surface is going to be hard and moisture resistant. That way you can have really messy experiments and have an easy cleanup as well once you're done. In a typical elementary classroom, we're going to be having kind of the same format as Broadmoor and Murray. We're going to have the wall with ample storage behind. Some lessons learned were to reposition some of the hooks away from the top of the casework where the cubbies are located, because the backpacks and the counter space made it really easy to use both. So we did take some of those lessons learned that the committee provided to us and made some changes. Also, some of the sliding marker board spaces at the exterior of the wall, we have reallocated those tack board spaces up elsewhere in the classroom. Next slide. Of course, all rooms will include the district standard for technology. I will note too that the school is designed for the one-to-one setup that we are in currently. So each classroom will have a space to charge the carts for computers. In the pre-K classrooms, these are just a little bit different. We're going to have sinks and a changing area towards the back behind that privacy wall that you see there, adjacent to a restroom located just outside each of these classrooms. So we'll have individual restrooms for each one. Next slide. So here is a view of the library upstairs. So this is looking at the circulation desk. We chose some really great soft finishes for behind the desk space, and some very durable solid surfacing for some of the faces of the desk fronts and tops, and then a separate accent, which you'll see there at the bottom. We did do some of those fun hexagonal shapes on the roof, or excuse me, on the ceiling. And then we'll have some movable risers and furniture that teachers can position, that are soft risers they can position for a lesson or any type of format. That was some of the comments we took back from other schools, is that they wanted some flexibility in these spaces to have different events. Next slide. And here's a view of the gymnasium. So lesson learned as well that we incorporated into this one was we have lots of seating for the entire school on the new bleachers. So that'll seat the entire school capacity. And then we have included some additional acoustical treatment in the gym to help, dampen some of the noise that we see now from some of the hard surface gyms that were finished at Broadmoor and Murray. And then for the flooring, we're doing a resilient, it's a vinyl maple look plank. So that has also acoustical properties in there that is stain resistant and can stand up to the normal wear and tear that you have in a gymnasium. It's designed for gyms. So that's some of the acoustical treatments that we're also doing in the space, trying to avoid some of the sound bags that you see in some of the other schools. Fine. We have next. So this is the entryway. As you come off of the front entry of the school, this is going to be the admin area. So this is how our guests and patrons and visitors to the school will be greeted. We did make this area a bit bigger than the other previous ones. That way we could have some comfortable space for dual screens and two reception employees to work there. Here. So here is a view of the exterior of the school as it sits today. We did do some of these school colors in just very select areas, as you see at the entryway, and some of the school signage. We stuck with some of the principles practiced in the previous schools for durable materials as a wainscot. So we're doing the CMU veneer along the bottom of the school that will stand up to wear and tear. We're also doing a very clean metal panel that you see as the white color going around the school, and then select 3-coat stucco areas at a higher elevation to kind of help with some of the cost control on the project. Next slide. We'll also be having some natural light in the gymnasium, but a bit more insulated window treatments for cow wall. So you're going to get a nice diffused light in those spaces while you get an insulated window. And then this frame that we're coming across the top, along with some of the areas that are recessed in to have some stucco elements that are resembling, as we looked at a grid for some of the design motifs, some of the oil patches that you see kind of as you look from above the grid. So that was kind of some of the ideas that we had for some of the playful colors that we have kind of in the middle of that recessed area. Go to the next slide. To get a good view of the edge, you can probably flip through these. Yeah, so that's a good view of the west elevation as you come into the school. So next slide. And then here is the view from the north side. So this is your view as you see from Turner in Texas, facing the playground. That's a view of the library. And we also have the exterior teacher's balcony located adjacent to the library, keeping that wainscot as you wrap all the way around the school with some glazing only on the north side, as we're trying to control a lot of heat gain from any sun exposure on the west and the south. Right. So currently, as we sit today, and this was well, let me rephrase that. As we sat at design development, this is where the budget is currently sitting after that phase. The original construction budget was at 21 million. And with today's volatile construction market that we're all seeing, we are being a bit conservative on our estimating. So after the completion of DD, we were at about 25 million. And the bid lot for the additional pre-K classrooms is about 1.7, which is coming out to about 392 a square foot. Originally, the budget was, I think, 329 a square foot, if I remember that correctly. So there is some, I guess, room there that we're seeing from the current construction market and material costs and labor. So what we've done, since you've seen this today and after today's meeting, we've changed some of the exterior materials which are reflected in your current views, which tax about 1 million off of that number that you're seeing there today. So we're going through the exercise of trying to find ways to reduce the budget, since metal is a really high cost right now. And also, we are working with the committee and Mr. Mackey on a VE list in ways that we do not impact the total scope, because we are at the total gross square footage, maximum allowable gross square footage by PSFA. We did not exceed that. So we're at the same size that the school is allowed to be per the PSFA MOU, which means that we don't want to reduce any scope, because that's where you're going to get your big cost difference. We're trying to really look at materials and keep the tear very efficient, which is your space that's not included in your program, like your classrooms, and any other cost control measures. So with the next round of estimates, we're going to be incorporating the new materials that you see now, along with any approved design team and Hobbs Municipal Schools value engineering items that we could select, and we'll have a number to reduce the cost on the project without impacting the scope of work. So are there any questions as we get to this point? I'm just about towards the end of my slide deck as well, that I can answer for.
I don't have any yet. Like I always tell everybody, that term value engineering always scares me.
I agree.
We don't end up getting what we want.
If I may answer that question really quick. We have found it proactive to complete a list ahead of time before construction comes. So where we see that sacrifice happen is after the contractor submits a bid, and then we have to work backwards to cut the price back. So we take the process of going through after design development, creating a list of items. For instance, one would be, can you do CMU veneer in the front and not the back? And if the owner says absolutely not, then we don't look at that as a design option that the contractor would then price. But if there are items such as, can we reduce landscaping by 50%, then that's one that we can start the design on now, since we have an estimated number to it. So we avoid situations where we're forced into a corner in construction to actually back up from the price a bit. But we are trying to avoid any type of, that feeling is never fun. I've been there.
Any questions? Looks good, though. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Juan. Okay. Consideration of the district-wide LED upgrade.
Mr. President, members of the board, I have in your packets for consideration a project whereby we would replace all of our lighting in the district. Simply stated. As you all know, Hobbs Schools is a leader in energy cost avoidance and savings. And Sean Drake is here. He's our guru. I will tell you, and many of you know this already, but publicly, many school districts reach out to Sean and his expertise in cost avoidance. And where that pays us dividends is our utilities, how we pay the light bill comes out of the same fund that we pay salaries out of. We don't pay them out of a different fund. And so every dollar that we avoid spending on energy allows us to return more money to the classroom. And so under Sean's leadership with our energy savings program, we realized significant savings to surpass the $8 million mark in terms of cost avoidance. And we've been looking at a project, LED project district-wide for a number of years. In my former life as operations, we looked at things and we used Broadmoor as an example to compare old Broadmoor to new Broadmoor. And our best estimations were we were saving annually $20,000 energy costs just on lighting alone. The new Broadmoor is already an LED campus. And so that was significant enough for us to say, let's move forward and see what we can do bigger. So with Sean's leadership, as well as with Mark Kirby, Director of Maintenance, they've been engaged in conversation with Aquila. And John Sledge of Aquila is here tonight to answer any questions. We do have a few slides in your packet that is from Aquila that talks about the savings that we expect to realize by moving forward with an LED replacement project district-wide. Project would be conducted in the evenings, wouldn't interrupt the classroom. Maybe I'm putting John on the spot, but I believe I remember we would have this project done before coming back in January. So with that, would absolutely stand for questions and would ask John and Sean if they'd like to come down to answer any questions.
So we have initial costs to do this, and then we know we're gonna save money, but how long's the payout?
Yeah, and I'll let John speak to that, but we have budgeted $1.7 million for this project.
Mr. Strickland, Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for having me. Where I come from, it's 102 degrees, so I'm going to take some of this fall weather back east when I go home tomorrow back to Fort Worth. So you can see here, actually, let me get my hard copy out. Just to give you just a slight bit of background, so we exclusively deal in school districts. By the end of this year, we'll have completed 40 school districts in Texas. This would actually be our first one in New Mexico. We did do Seminole ISD in 2019. Typically, the way that we go about underwriting these projects, we kind of do business the old school way. We always like to under promise, over deliver. So we've never missed on savings on any of these 40 schools. The reason why we explicitly stick to lighting, because when you look at all energy conservation measurements that you can implement, lighting is the most objective. It is as simple as you have 100 watts up of fluorescent light, you take 100 watts down, put 40 watts up of LED, you're running your lights, so that's about 60 watts of savings. You're running your lights at about 2,400 hours, which we know schools actually run their lights more than that. But again, we are very conservative in how we estimate. You're paying 7.9 cents per kilowatt hour. It's a simple mathematic calculation to get to those savings. So when you understand that, that's one line item or one fixture We got 14,000 fixtures in this district that we came out here for a couple of weeks when you had salaried engineers walking basically kind of every single fixture from light closets to classrooms to exterior to ag barns, locker rooms, gymnasiums, you name it. So that's basically that's kind of so you understand kind of the nucleus of the math of how it works. That's how we get to this number. So slide 1 here, this just shows us what, and by the way, that's the way the Department of Energy and NREL tells you to do it. We view it as the most conservative way to do it as well. So this slide right here tells us what electricity rates have done, arguably over the past 20 years. At Aquila, we have a saying that 3 things are going to happen. We're all going to die. We all have to pay taxes, and electricity costs are going to keep going up. So really, this helps mitigate that. Next slide, please. Yeah, if you can just go to the next slide. It's okay. You're doing much better than I probably do. So if you'll scroll just a tad bit more. So I walked y'all through the formulaic way of coming up with the savings. So we walked basically 19 buildings, we exempted 8. And again, we counted 14,000 light fixtures that comprise of about 2,200 line items. So when you run that mathematical equation through all of that, we're saving we would be saving annually 1,845,000 kilowatt hours per year. And we pulled 24 months of y'all's electricity bills to figure out what your effective fully burdened cost is. So it's just as simple as doing 1,845,000 times 7.9 cents. That's your annual electricity cost savings. You can see this graph here on the right. So currently your lighting system in all your buildings is consuming about 3.75 million kWh. After converting it to LED, we would drop it to below 2 million. So next page, please. Something else that people don't realize with LED is, the system that we design and would be installing would last the district approximately 20 years. It doesn't mean at year 20 everything starts going out. What it means is LED is held to a much higher standard than fluorescent. So at 20 years, it's going to be at about 80% of its original output. So clearly, when fluorescent lights are failing, let's say every 8 to 10,000 hours, and you've got 14,000 light fixtures, that's a pretty significant cost in terms of your annual equipment replacement of the lights, the bulbs, the ballast, and of course the human capital required to do it. We kind of look at changing lights as like changing the oil in a car. It doesn't make a car worth more. It's just the liability of ownership. If you'll scroll down just a tad bit more, you can see here by going to LED, you're going to save the district about $21,000 a year and just not having to buy bulbs and ballast. We're told by all of our customers we're about 33% conservative of what that number really is, meaning historic data would tell us I'll probably spend closer to maybe $60,000. You would scroll down a little bit more. By doing this project, y'all are in the Excel rebate district. Excel will generate a rebate of $260,000 to y'all upon project completion. We actually checked with them this morning. Funds are secured. You guys are probably getting that rebate sometime around Q1 of 2022. So again, you start the project, you finish, and you get kind of a $260,000 windfall pretty quickly after starting. Next slide, please. So you can see here on the left, the actual contract amount is $1.815 million. You've got a $260,000 rebate. So your net project cost to the district is about $1.5 million. Below that is just the savings summated like we talked about, the annual electricity savings plus the labor or the equipment reduction, full annual savings of $166,000. So your first year ROI is about 11%. This project will pay itself off in sub 10 years. You can see to the right, these graphs, for this one graph, this just kind of shows the impact of when you're talking about something of this size and scope. For every day that goes by that you're not doing something, you're basically losing about $457. That's just leaking out. That's monetary funds that could be garnered, like Mr. Strickland said, this comes from the same budget as teacher salaries. So that can be put back into that pool. On a 3-month, it's closer to $15,000. You can see life expectancy of equipment of the system is about 20 years. I mentioned that doesn't mean everything goes off at 20 years. Net savings over system's life. In other words, after you have paid us and at the end of 20 years, this project would have a net economic impact of about 1.7 million bucks to the district. That's not including reduction in labor and just kind of the brain damage of not having to change lights and so forth, all that going down. You can scroll down, please. Really quickly, I'll hit. So currently, y'all are spending about $300,000 a year in energy costs to run your existing lighting system. Afterwards, you're going to be spending about $151,000. That's almost a 50% reduction in that line item. I own a business. If I can find a 50% savings in anything, that's going to be a really good day for me. So clearly, you can do that with LED lighting. That's how impactful it is. Next slide, please. You can see here we're on page 64 of 1097. We're not going to all 1097, I promise. We'll wrap up quick. Go down just a little bit more. So the U.S. Department of Labor tells us the average building maintenance worker makes $18.11 per hour. Again, because our software tells us how often bulbs and ballasts are failing, we can say with integrity that just in human capital, y'all are paying in salaries right now, probably about 17,000 bucks a year, just for people to change light bulbs and ballasts. And again, that all goes away because you install a system that doesn't have to be touched for 20 years. Next page, please. So this is just a summation of the cash flows over a 10-year period. If you'll scroll to the bottom, I won't go through. You can see here, project payout 9.3 years. Year 0 is clearly when we implement the project, and clearly it's just a pretty strong accrual there going forward. Next page, please. This just shows kind of a makeup of the products. I won't go into every one, but by and large, 60% of the project is going to be kind of what you guys have in this room, which are these replacement panels. The other remainder is going to be mostly existing fixtures that are currently fluorescent, actually pulling out the tubes, eliminating the ballast, and putting up LED tubes. You don't want to have the ballast. That's something additional that can also just fail in the future. So, but aesthetically, if you want to get a feel, it's going to look a lot like this, but most of it's 2x4 panels, or these are 2x2 panels. The gymnasiums will be addressed, some exterior lighting, can lights, etc. Virtually everything at the school will be LED. You don't have to worry, we always condone, hey, always do 100%. So if you leave 2%, those are still bulbs and things you have to stock and keep in a supply closet and think about changing. So everything will be 100%. Next slide, please. This is something we like to measure. I do realize that we're an oil country. I come from oil country myself, and I'm ironically in past life with an oil and gas business. But because the EPA, because we know how many kilowatt hours per year we're saving, the EPA gives us these calculations that say, hey, I think this is personally important to public entities in spirit of stewardship and just kind of social responsibilities that they have. But scroll down just a little bit more. Since we know we're saving 1.8 million kilowatt hours per year, the EPA gives us these calculations, and Hobbs Municipal Schools doing this project. Over the useful life is the equivalent of basically planting 35,000 acres of trees, not driving 73.5 million miles in average US passenger car, or it's like recycling 10,000 tons of waste or not burning 3.3 million gallons of gas. So, it's got a pretty big impact of kind of the intangible side and what it does for the community aside from just the monetary effect. That's really the meat of it. Mr. Strickland and Mr. Drakes had asked me to come present. I'm grateful to be here, and I just wanted to make sure I could make myself available for whatever questions you may have.
I think Gene and I had lunch today and he answered some of my questions. Do you have any questions?
No, sir, like we put LEDs in our shop. Up brighter. Get the old
The big lights, the big bulb lights, and we changed all those out with LED fluorescents. Definitely a lot brighter. And they were the big ballast, the big light bulb thing. Had two of them catch on fire. So hadn't had that happen, so that's a plus. So.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
buzz when they turn
No,
on.
So the heat that the Forest Alliance we have now compared to the heat that these put out, is there a big difference?
There's a humongous difference. As a rule of thumb, an LED light will put out about a tenth of the amount of heat as a fluorescent. There's actually a reduction in your HVAC load as well. Again, not something we necessarily underwrite, but yeah, it's real. People see it.
I was thinking, air conditioners don't have to work so hard in the summertime, but the heaters got to work harder in the winter, don't they?
You could go the other direction. Of course, again, where I come from, where it's 102, I think people want to have the LED lights more on their side for cooling and heating, but
I think we use air conditioning more than we do heat though, so that's where it's going to offset for sure. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
thank
you.
y'all for having me.
Being there are no more questions, then I would entertain a motion for consideration of the district-wide LED upgrades.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
We're excited about the project.
Sean.
Thanks, John. Thanks,
Sean, make sure you're keeping those hours on consulting fees for other districts. so-
That's right.
Yeah, but income stream. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Well, the board has had their packet since last week and had an opportunity to review all of the items and especially the business side, which is takes up. So that's great.
All right. Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Strickland, for your consideration, the normal investment expenditures, we do have one RFP and 2 bars for your consideration.
Okay. We're going to do all of these in one motion and second. Okay, if there aren't any questions for Ms. Gray, then I would entertain a motion considering section A 1 through 4. Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Strickland, for your consideration inventory, I would like to start with page 2 and then go through page 832. No. That's just the annual inventory that
All y'all wondering how long these packets can get. There's 1,094 pages in this board packet.
142 are inventory.
Yeah. Okay. Consider a motion for consideration of inventory. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Strickland, just a copy of the Moody's report, just for your reference. We're going out for a bond sale. As you know, we had the bond election. Now we're doing the bond actual sale. So the Moody's rating is basically like your FICO score. And as you can see, we have a AA3, which is the rating we had previously had. So we were able to keep our rating, and overall, we were pleased with the report. And that's what we will go into the bond sale in October. That's just for your information. There's no
Okay.
action on that. And then just the quarterly report for information.
Any questions for Ms. Gray? Thank you, Ms. Gray.
Take credit for it.
Yeah, and I was reading some of that Moody's report, and some of that issue is there's nothing we can do about it. It's the state causing this issue.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, that's
A lot of
frustrating. Yeah.
Still the retirement
Yeah.
deal hitting us yet.
President Brown, I can speak to that in small fashion. Moody's was very complimentary of our school district. They did share that the conditions that we're experiencing are not the same conditions that they're seeing across the nation. We do have a healthy cash reserve. We are seeing enrollment coming back, whereas other school districts are not seeing that. And so those are 2 indicators that we're in our benefit, whereas other school districts did not have that case. And so for our rating to remain stable in the environment that we continue to be in, we see that as a win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. President, members of the board, next item is our consideration of our ESSER three proposed budget. And I believe Flowers is here, Director of Federal Programs, to help walk you through that. You do have a cover page and a couple items there that speak to the survey, our stakeholder input, where we sought input. I was pleased with the number of responses that we received. Nice to see that participation. So, Susan, floor is yours.
Hello, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Strickland. Is there anything I can answer for you on there or talk to you about? One of the main things that the budget overall from the stakeholder meetings that they wanted was CTEC. The next thing that we budgeted for was our continuing capturing kids' hearts for the next 2 years. That was a big SEL. That was another thing that the stakeholders really wanted. Or anything else?
It's interesting that everybody's excited about CTAC where it needs to go.
Mhm. That's where the bulk of the budget's going.
Yeah. I have no questions. Anybody?
Sure.
We're making it easy on you. Thank you.
That was easy. Short, sweet.
So I would entertain a motion for consideration of the ESSER three proposed budget.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. President, next item would be our first reading or consideration of our first reading of policy JFB. You'll remember back the prior 3 months, we did see a number of policy service advisories that addressed policy JFB. And we did reject policy advisory 215 in August because it would overhaul our entire open enrollment process. Specific to that advisory was the state statute that allowed for military families to be involved in an open enrollment process. And so what we did is we took those components out of that state statute or out of that policy advisory and included it into our existing JFB. So this would be a first reading of that adjustment to JFB, and I'll just read that addition. Pupils who were enrolled in the school the previous year and relocated because their parents were deployed as active duty members of the United States Armed Forces or National Guard, or children of a military family who will be attending school in the district during the upcoming year. Those children of military families relocated to New Mexico by official order may enroll their children in public school prior to their actual physical presence in the district. School district shall pre-register the student in anticipation of the student's enrollment, provided the student's parent provides proof of residence in the district within 45 days of published arrival. So those are those 3 bullets that was predicated that change to policy JFB on the policy service advisory. And so rather than throwing out our open enrollment policy, we included that provision in there.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Strickland? And I would entertain a motion for consideration of the first reading of policy JFB.
Thank you.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. President, next item is the consideration of our enhanced COVID safety plan. And if you will recall, last time we met in August, we were on the eve of closing Hobbs High School down for a day. That was because we had 4 rapid responses, and that was the existing COVID guidance as provided by New Mexico Public Education Department. We did submit that plan to close for 1 day due to those 4 rapid responses, and that plan was approved. So students were back in school on that Thursday immediately following that. Subsequent to that, PED, the medical advisory team, and the Department of Health were in agreement that that rapid response model did not fit well for all school districts or all school buildings. You only had your large campuses being closed. So what they moved to was a percentage. So a percentage of positive cases over the previous 14 days of that entire school population would predicate additional protective measures that you would need to take. We're in support of that because it allows us to be responsive locally based upon our existing conditions and not being painted with a broad brush as a state. As a portion of that, we were required to provide what's called an enhanced COVID safety plan. And that plan is recommended to be implemented at 3% positive infections over the last 14 days and will be required at 5%. So as you can see there, following that cover page is our COVID safety plan. All of the items in green, in order for this plan to be accepted, have to be selected. And there are current things that we're doing within our campuses. The remaining items in white, you have to select at least 10 of those to have an approved plan. We selected more than that because some of those we're actually already doing within our current state. And the reason why we selected more of those is it allows us the greatest flexibility as it relates to that unique campus environment. We did not want to have a plan that we would apply as a broad brush to our entire district. We wanted to select additional options that we could deploy in the event of a 3% infection rate per campus. So in the event we got 3% at campus ABC, we would look at this plan and select those things that are most conducive to that environment. I did receive word. We submitted this on November the 10th, I believe. Friday the 10th.
November?
No, did I say November? My apologies. September the 10th. We submitted our plan on September the 10th, and I did receive feedback today that our plan had been approved as per PED. So I would like to draw your attention to our existing dashboard. I don't know if you have that up or not, but I will speak to it. It is a dashboard that exists on our website. You can scroll down and you can click on that dashboard. We will post this enhanced COVID safety plan on that page. That dashboard tells the community, it tells us what's currently happening on our campuses. It communicates the last 14 days from active cases per staff, active cases per student, gives you a positive 14-day count. Those are the campus total, the total population, students and staff present there, and then generates a % positive of active cases. As a district, we are at 0.7% across our 11,267 persons. In comparison, the last 14 days of Lee County, we're at 1.2%. So I say that to say in-person instruction is the best model for kids to receive instruction. That is a portion of the day that we know some of those COVID safe practices are being applied. Routine hand washing, distancing, reminding the students to sneeze or cough into their arm. So by looking at a comparison, we know that what we have in place and that we have a 14-day positive case rate of 0.7%, less than 1%. I feel good about providing the instructional model that we're providing to kids today.
It's working.
It's working. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So with that, I would seek a motion on our enhanced COVID safety plan.
Okay. We have a motion. It's not like anybody else is here going to move or second it, right?
I was waiting
Oh,
We
on
have
I
a
you.
motion in it and a
I'll
second. Okay.
Get Ms. Jones' name on the thing for next.
Mhm.
Well, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Like you did state, Mr. Strickland, I was going back over, it. I know we talked a little bit about it the other day when he first sent it to us, but I know like everything in green is everything we're already doing already. So that's nothing really isn't changed there, just the bottom do get to that 3% or 5% or some of the things that is a broad stroke that we may have to implement at a certain percentage of those we'll have to implement in certain campuses.
And
You know,
Mr. President, Mr. Brown, apologize for the interruption. One thing to note is the items in green, those are required by PED. Those are things that we do not have an option of at this point.
I'd like to also, like I said, I know what this, we talked about the other day, when we were on the eve of, except for one day, I mean, normal, we should have been shut down for 10 days.
Correct.
That was normal policy. And, you know, working with the Fed, you work hard with them and got that to one day. The most important thing, like I said, some of the things are, we wish we didn't have to do it. But if it lets us keep the schools open and keeps kids in schools, I would say thanks to all the Countyans. I don't know if we're being recorded tonight, but I know the numbers are going down. So hopefully, I know the governor, I think, ended the mandate to the October 15th. So I'm hoping by the 15th, get the numbers down enough that we can, all of us can go outside, throw these things away, and I'll when we get to that point, when no mask mandate statewide or whatever, I'll invite all y'all to a mask burning party. I got plenty of s'mores. We'll burn masks and make s'mores. But because, like I said, it's not a, it's not an ideal situation. But we got kids in classrooms. Kids are, like he's talking about the freshman school. I went up there for lunch that day, and kids were laughing, talking to their friends, and that's school. That's why we need to have kids to have that communal impact. Thank you.
Mr. President, for your information, I have an enrollment update. You can see there, that is through today. So today was our 30th day of class. 9,852 is our number, our current count. You can see that we're hovering around that 9860 number, 9855 number. We're thankful that we've got those additional 200 kids. What I will say, because those 200 kids were not on our campuses last year. And we look forward to the day when the majority of our parents that are not back yet recognize that we are committed to in-person instruction, that we are not going to have the yo-yo effect of in and out, in and out, in and out. So we look forward to those kiddos when they do come back. We'll accept them with open arms, and we'll get to work. I did note down there October 13th, that would be our 46th today. That is the state's 40th day, so that will be our mark in time that will determine our 40th day number. So we should have some preliminary numbers for you at the October board meeting in terms of what that may look like. But that is where we stand in enrollment as of today. Next item I have is information as well, is our bond update. As you all know, or are fully aware, we are in the process of selling the first $12 million of our approved bond that the voters elected back in November of 2019. That process continues. So dating back to August 16th, we did pass those resolutions. We received our rating from Moody's that Carrie went over just earlier. They have engaged in underwriters, and I believe they selected 3. We will only use 1 for this first round of 12 million, but the reason they selected 3 is it allows us to go back to that pool with the remaining $18 million, however we end up sequencing those. But we do have those underwriters engaged and at the table. Today, we did have our due diligence call with the underwriters. Brad Angst indicated that it went well. And we are scheduled to have a pre-pricing call next Wednesday on where we believe that is. And really, that's a check-in to just make sure nothing's changed. That position of opening statement at POS that it talks about there, that's what we spoke to today with those underwriters and that due diligence. So speaking that our economy remains strong, our enrollment continues to increase, we're good signs for that. Looking forward to that final funding date of November the 4th. We would close and we would fund that $12 million on November the 4th, which, as a reminder, will fund in part Career Technical Education Center, that ongoing project, as well as the Southern Heights Replacement Project, which is a joint project between Hobbs Schools and the state of New Mexico. And the last item I have is an update. Many of us know, but as we met last board meeting, we were in the final days of our mill levy election. And as was shared and actually has been verified and certified by the county commission, our mill levy was passed. Both 2 mill and 4 mill were passed. And Superintendent of Hobbs Schools, we greatly appreciate the support our community gives to Hobbs Schools. We could not do the things we do in terms of LED lighting replacement, in terms of addressing some of the deviant licks that we're experiencing here recently, in providing a safe and secure setting for our students. We could not provide that setting without that support of our local community. So that is huge in terms to know that those dollars will be there for the next 6 years.
Thank the voters, yes.
Absolutely. Final is announcements. You have a regional board meeting scheduled for Monday, the 27th. The agenda does show 5:30. We will get out an adjustment to that. Joe Guillen asked that we adjust that back a little bit to allow for some more time on those agency presentations. So we will begin that CTEC tour at 5. We'll get that out to all the superintendents and their boards. Urge folks to join us at 5 at CTEC. We'll tour them through there. And his staff will help support that. And we'll begin at 5:30 with dinner and entertainment by the choir.
We have any idea of the attendance yet?
I think we heard from,
We have about 50.
I think there's only one school district that said they would not attend. The other district in our region.
Good. I thought for sure COVID would get this one, but doesn't look like it's going to.
Well, and speaking to Mr. Guillen, all of those agency representatives will be in person.
Well,
They are planning to be here. So I think that speaks volumes to where we are as a community, that we recognize COVID is real. It's not going away. We have to continue to find ways to conduct life and move forward. So I'm excited about being able to host that meeting and demonstrate that we can do it right. The regular board meeting on October 19th.
All right. Any other business? It is 8:37.
I'm on those.
Have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Hi. You guys have a good evening.
You too, Ms. Jones.
All right.